make of the way that your players rose to that challenge?
The most important thing if you want to have a chance of winning a game like this against a very strong Chelsea is that you work so hard as we did. So the way we threw ourselves in front of the ball, first half Curtis, second half Dominic, is also what you need against such a strong team. And in the meantime, we created, I think, a few very good chances, and were, in my opinion at least, but maybe I'm a bit biased, a bit unlucky with some decisions being made.
Okay. Do you want to expand on that, the decisions that you weren't happy with?
No, it's not that important anymore because we won, but I think it could have been a crucial decision to overturn the VAR, overturn the referee decision on the pitch, which I couldn't understand he did. And I think if the referee looks at it for a minute, it already shows that the VAR shouldn't have intervened. And even in my opinion, if you look at it on a screen, you still feel it's a penalty. But and that's me. And then there was, of course, the decision of the red card, which I saw yesterday was a red card in a similar situation.
But this is right at the start of the match you're going back to now. There were so many little decisions to make, wasn't there? Not little, big decisions, actually.
Big decisions, because penalties or red cards influence the game a lot. But it's also nice that these moments are inside the game, because it also creates a lot of energy. The fans really stood up today as well. They helped us a lot, and that probably comes from these decisions as well, because they're just as biased as I am. Is biased, right?
Yeah, that works, yeah.
In the end, a good win against a very strong Chelsea.
It's interesting that you mentioned the fans and the Anfield factor. Was that your most emotional Anfield game so far from the fans? Also looking at you on the touchline, I think it's your first booking.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, the booking came from the fact that I think there were 3 or 4 decisions that went in our favour. So it was a handball. I don't know if it was, but everybody was screaming for it, so I did as well. Then there was the red card situation. Then there was the penalty situation just afterwards. So there were a few things going against us, and I think sometimes you cannot hold your emotions, and that's what you saw with me as well. He deserved to give me a yellow card, or he should have given me a yellow, which he did. I deserved it. I have to put it like this.
Not often we hear a manager admit that.
Yeah, but this was so clear. This was just as clear as the penalty he should have given the second time.
How good was Curtis Jones today?
Very good. Very good individual performance. I think the whole team worked very, very hard. Curtis had a difficult job. He had to control Cole Palmer, which is not easy because this player has some quality.
And you did keep him quiet today, or you, Curtis, everyone?
Yeah, it's a team effort, but Curtis was mostly responsible for that, so I think he did that really well, and he added some very important moments to it, because he was he 2 times involved in the penalty also?
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
And then scoring a goal, so he was on both parts of the pitch, very important for us.
So I think I said this to you before the game. Does a good start now become a great start? You're making this look easy.
I think everybody who saw the game knows that this wasn't easy. I said it before, Chelsea showed last season, second half of the season, how good of a team they are. Invested even more. So it's for us, it's very, very good that we made a bit of a gap now towards them, because they will be, in my opinion, in the end of the season in top of the league.
Okay.
Well, maybe not top, but they will
in and about.
In and about, yeah.
Okay. Well done, brilliant.
Thank you.
A relaxed, jovial and smiling Arne Slot, as well he might be. 1 defeat for Liverpool so far this season. Everything else has been a victory. They've got the meanest defence in the Premier League. They conceded only 3 goals in their opening 8 games, and they've won all but one of them, and that was that Nottingham Forest game which happened here at Anfield after the last international break. So not only have they beaten Chelsea today, but they've done it after an international break as well. And he was very relaxed, Daniel. Do you think that for the players, that change from Jurgen Klopp, who, yes, was very outgoing and was a big hugger, but also had an intensity about him, and it's not about criticising one way or the other, but just the change?
I think it's refreshing. You know, I'm not going to say Arne Slot's not demanding, but I think everybody knows how demanding Jurgen was, both on the pitch and off the pitch. I think from even, Kurt said being at home the day before the game is a different mindset for players, and they can feel more relaxed just being at home sometimes. So I think all in all, the players, of course, are buying into the manager. I think his personality comes across very well. and clearly the players are performing under him. So whatever he's doing behind the scenes is clearly working, and long may it continue for him.
He's not as emotional as Klopp, but he got wrapped up in the game today, didn't he? Basically, that's what I'm talking about, the first sort of Anfield atmosphere he's been involved in. And, you know, Liverpool were under pressure, under the cosh, and you see his reaction, I think, when Nunes maybe got a foul given against him. You could see he just got himself sort of wrapped up and maybe showed little elements there of Jurgen Klopp. But he's a different manager. And I think the thing that Liverpool supporters enjoy, I think, at the moment, is the fact that he's not trying to be something else or play up to any. You know, he's being himself, and he's made a brilliant start.
It's worked so well, and I think if you'd looked at the fixture list at the start of the season and thought, get to this point, coming up to the start of November, and Liverpool have lost one of their games across all competitions, you'd have taken that, wouldn't you?
Oh, of course. And it's interesting coming into this game. Liverpool and Chelsea to a certain extent. Chelsea played City first game, but since then he's been on a decent run. Liverpool have obviously had a great start to the season, and people say they haven't played anyone. And yeah, that's right. You know, Liverpool have come out on top tonight. But a big thing of being successful is winning the games you're supposed to win. That takes you a long way in a football season. Now, you look at Man City last season, they didn't beat Liverpool or Arsenal. They still won the league because they won the games they were supposed to win. So if you do that, whether you're Chelsea, Liverpool or anybody else, you're going to have a very good season. It becomes a great season then if you start taking points off, you know, of your rivals. And I agree with what the manager said there, that I do think Chelsea will be there or thereabouts in terms of certainly top folks. I thought they put on a pretty good display here today.
Yeah. And you said, Mike, at the final whistle that this was the game that made you think Liverpool have serious challenges again this season. It's always hard to prejudge with a new manager.
I think it's always difficult, and we were sort of looking at systems and what the manager's going to bring. I think he's brought a little bit of calmness. I think defensively, Liverpool look a lot more solid. I think at times under Klopp, which the football he played was amazing to watch. But as a defender, sometimes playing in that system could be exposed a little bit. I think the timing in which the defenders drop back and push up is a lot more balanced. And I think, you know, you've always got players at the top of the pitch who can win your games. So it's what you can do defensively. And that's why I believe the challenge is...
They've gone now. Let's talk about them. Let's look at the penalty, the one that was given, because there's another penalty incident that both Curtis Jones and Arne Slot talked about. This one was given. Again, it was Curtis Jones who was involved in it.
Yeah, it was, and it comes from direct play. Liverpool got a lot of joy from that again, but you just see Curtis Jones' position there, initially getting on the second ball, so he's gone from one end of the pitch to the other, and he keeps going. And Colwell just, listen, he thinks the ball's there, he has a little swipe at it. But again, that comes from Curtis Jones getting beyond the front players, beyond Salah, beyond Jota, and that's where the penalty comes from. And obviously we'll see the reaction from Levi now, but... when he looks back at it, he'll know it was a penalty. We see this reaction now.
And Curtis Jones says, look, I don't dive, but I felt contact and I went down. Fair? Do you think, Daniel?
For me, if I'm getting contact, and I think as attacking players, when you get contact in the box, you go down because you know you have an opportunity to take a penalty. And you see here Mo Salah, I love this angle from the striker's perspective. Fantastic penalty. He was, you know, did what he wanted.
Any doubts before he
No, definitely not. He's cool as you like. Of course, he's missed penalties, but you're not scared to miss. I think that's what I love about Salah. And
he's moved from 10th up to joint 9th in terms of all-time Premier League goal scorers. And he's starting to just creep in. I mean, the 200 is looking a little bit kind of hard to reach, but you're looking at the names above him and he's getting closer.
Well, he'll have an eye on Thierry Henry and Frank Lampard by the end of this season, I would imagine. And I think stats like this are one of the biggest reasons why Mo Salah will sign a new contract at Liverpool. Of course, they'll be talking about money and length of contract, but I think these are the things that really get the juices flowing for Mo Salah. He breaks all the records at Liverpool, but getting as far as he can up those lists, and you know, whether it's that list or, you know, different ones, I think that's a big part of sort of his focus as a player. I'm not saying he's selfish. He's obviously a great team player.
But if you are a striker, individual records are kind of partly what you're remembered for outside of trophies.
I think anyone who's an attacker who wants to be best or the best, you have to be obsessed with things like that, because, you know, your job is to score, your job is to help your team win. And I think for him, it's now to the point of legacy. And it's like, how can I add to my legacy? Come on, he's going to go down as arguably the best top 3 for sure, maybe in terms of Liverpool's history. Carragher, you can let me know what you think of that. But, you know, for me, I think he's going to add to his legacy, and that's what he's... Wants to win trophies, of course, but I think as a human, I've seen him grow from... And Michael would say maybe from Fiorentina what his mindset was. But when I met him at Liverpool, I don't think he thought he would be where he is today. But I think as time's gone on, he's had that belief, his belief's grown and grown and grown to the point where now I think when he gets on the pitch, how he performs, it's like I'm untouchable. And I think, for me, like looking at Thierry and those types of guys, players he's idolised as well, I do believe he's got an eye on them thinking, you know what, if I can go down as having more goals than someone like a Thierry Henry, come on, man. Like,
I mean,
and we look at him as the GOAT.
I mean, the big debate is Dalglish Gerrard, isn't it? I mean, Kelly will go one way, I'll go the other.
In what order?
Exactly.
Yeah. Luckily, I'm working on this side. I have no preference, but officially anyway.
I just don't know if we can get that list back up, because I think what's so...
Your wishes are commands.
Yeah,
anything for you, Michael.
Just so remarkable from the days at Fiorentina. Obviously, didn't work out for him at Chelsea. But if you look at what the top 5 there, Shearer, Kane, Rooney, Cole, strikers, Aguero, Lampard, we know the third man run, Thierry Henry is one of the best.
He's the only winger on the list.
And now with the different systems, for a right-sided forward to score that many goals, it just shows you what a machine he is. And at times, yeah, he can give away the ball sloppily and all that, but he's just so consistent in front of goal, and that sets him apart from some of the players in his position.
Also, you mentioned that you got Frank Lampard in midfield. That's unbelievable. He's about to goals, but he's not an out-and-out striker at times. He does have to get back and help the full-back. So for a wide striker, that's unbelievable.
He might have gone clear of Jermaine Defoe had he had another penalty. You've had a little bit of time to think since half-time, and now you think this is a penalty.
No, I just think when the referee... If you look at this from the referee's angle, it looks 100% the penalty. From this angle, you think, yeah, certain penalty. So, yeah, the referee gives it. Now, from this angle, which, VAR looked at all the angles, I'd look at that and say, that for me can go either way, because it looks like he's got a lot of the ball. But then there's another angle from behind the goal, and that one's... It doesn't look to me like he gets enough. And considering the referee's given the penalty, now that looks like it just goes under his... he touches it slightly on his calf, and to then take Curtis Jones out like that, and again, I go back to... that was my game, making tackles. And you used to say years ago, you're playing, I won the ball, ref. Now, you'd clip the ball, and then you just take someone out. But you say, I won the ball first. Those days are well gone. You can't get away with just getting the ball first. And then to take Curtis Jones out the way he did. And listen, I understand he's got nowhere else to go. But he just comes in, just takes him out. And the fact the referee gave it, I'm very surprised they overturned. I think it should have been a penalty. Yeah,
the question is whether or not it was a big enough mistake to overturn, looking at the VAR monitor.
Yeah, because there'll be a 50-50 debate. I think, obviously, Chelsea fans and then Liverpool fans will think differently. I agree with Carragher. I don't think it's...
Carragher?
When did you fall out?
Jamie. I agree. I don't think it's a howler. So I think it should have been given. But you can see from a Chelsea's point of view, Sanchez, there is contact on the ball. He has touched him afterwards, but that is, for me, just the momentum of the way he sort of protected himself, Curtis Jones, and sort of was jumping over the goalkeeper. So, of course, he's going to flip over in that way. See there, that little jump just to get himself out of the way. So I can see it from both sides, but I was surprised the referee overturned it.
The fact I'm saying he doesn't get enough of the ball keeps going past him. If the ball goes the other way,
yeah, but
and Curtis Jones goes front, okay, he's won a big bit of the ball. The ball's gone back that way. The ball's still actually going towards the goal. So that tells you he didn't get a big enough a touch.
Split debate, this, I think.
OK. Let's leave it at that then. Let's talk about Nicholas Jackson, who split opinion himself in the early days at Chelsea. Is he really starting to find his rhythm now, Daniel?
He is, and he's pivotal to this system that the manager's playing, because he's very good going into the false nine positions as well as making runs in behind. And his finishing, look, at the end of the day, this is a fantastic finish, calm in front of goal, knows where he's going to put it. He takes 3 touches. This is the key as well. When you're running through on goal, know what you're trying to do. I see sometimes with Nicholas Jackson, sometimes he's running through and he's not sure. 1, 2, 3, bang. And that's what you want to be in those positions. You don't be messing around, taking too many touches. Times the run perfect. The pass from Caicedo as well, we have to give him credit for the way to pass. But the finish for me, really, really nice.
Did he score 14 last year in the Premier League? So I think about his first season in the Premier League. It's still good numbers for a team that was not competing for really top 4 at the time.
Yep.
So I understand what you mean about him being a bit more controlled in front of goal. But his record this season and the last put them
What I'm
together.
saying is, I agree with you. I'm not saying... I look at Nicholas Jackson and I say, if we're judging a player on just goals in open play, Nicholas Jackson is one of the best strikers in the Premier League. But once you start adding in penalties and things like that, and then guys are getting 19, 20, 21, 22, you start to think, oh, is this guy... We see a lot of chances that he gets, and he can be erratic at times, but what he's got, I don't think you can teach. That's the hard part about him. It's because it's frustrating when you look at him. You think sometimes going through, he's calm as you like, and I've seen him outside the foot goal he scored a few weeks ago, and you're thinking, oh, and then sometimes you're like, he's snatching, and you think, is he going to develop? But you probably don't need to. That's the thing.
Can you improve that on the training ground, or is that almost like a natural instinct that you buy the goal?
I think you can, but it's doing the actions at match pace, keeping the numbers down. So say, OK, I'm going to do 5 of them at match pace today, match speed. The positions that I know I'm going to take up. I know that the midfielder or Cole Palmer usually got the ball there. Coach, can you stand there and just play that ball there, and I'm going to make the run I like to make. And you do that 5 times. Then the next day or 2 days after, you go in another position. The problem is so many games. Like... how they're managing the numbers on the training pitch and that. So can you really work on your craft and try and improve when the coaches are on the sideline saying, you've done too many sprints today, you've probably done a bit too much high-intensity accelerations, decels.
You said before the show that, before the game, that you felt Chelsea were 12 months away from challenging for the title. And when you think of the real big positions that stand out, it's probably goalkeeper. And a lot of people would say centre-forward. Do you think there's enough there with him that you wouldn't need to go into the market and get someone else? Do you think he can develop and become that man?
See, I had this question last year, and at that time I thought no, but I'm analysing him on open play. I'm not analysing him on saying statistics, OK, cool, I don't think he's devastating in front of goal, I don't, but I think he's got what it takes to get there. He just needs to hone his craft more. And when you're in the spotlight, playing number 9 at a top club, at any top club, you are judged because you're thinking Didier, Anelka, Shevchenko, the Crespos of this world, these players who have played at Chelsea, Gianfranco Zola, you're judging him against those top Chelsea strikers, and then you're also judging him against the likes of Haaland and these players. But let's not forget, players like Haaland miss chances often as well. So
the shot conversion's gone up though this year. It was 17 last season. It's gone up to 24% this season.
I think we've maybe been a little bit critical, and I've been part of it as well, because sometimes I'm judging him and thinking, I want to see the finished article. But if I judge myself at that age, being transparent, I would say I was snatching chances. You know, I think a lot of strikers who are honing their craft on the big stage because they want to do well.
I think there's a lot of strikers like that. I think of actually Højlund at Manchester United scored a great goal yesterday. So when they first come in, you're thinking, are they good enough for Man United? Is he good enough for Chelsea? Is Núñez good enough for Liverpool? I thought Núñez was outstanding when he came on today. Whether he'll ever get there in terms of finishing, I'm not quite sure. But when they go in at a top club, we want the finished article, don't we? Because we think, is this the man to take someone to the Premier League or the Champions League? And maybe, as you're right, we've probably just got to let them develop and give them a little bit more time, because it's not their fault if a big club brings them in. They maybe just still do need time to develop.
And you know the other thing as well, when you look at teams today are collectively trying to score goals. Arsenal spread the goals across the pitch. You got Havertz maybe getting 10 to 15 goals. Saka, Martinelli's going to pitch in goals from midfield. You look at Manchester City is probably the only team which is saying, we're feeding our man. And he's going to be the focal point for our team, scoring goals. You look at Liverpool, you got Mohamed Salah. Diaz is scoring goals this year. There's goals from different parts of the pitch. Jota. Then you go to every team right now outside of Manchester City, for me, they don't play just for the centre forward. It's like, we're going to get goals everywhere, and there's many ways to win matches. I don't think today it's more about the system and how can we get into the positions where the conversion percentage is high versus saying, go out there, take 2 guys on, and bang it in the back of the net. Like, those types of goals are rare now because it's more about how do we get the players in positions to be effective.
But in order for Jackson to continue to improve his strike rate, what you're saying is repetition is going to lead to consistency.
Repetition for me. And I think, as I said, I feel as if we're judging him critically because we're used to teams paying big money, getting a finished article in, and we're seeing world-class players walking out and we're thinking, but the model's changed. The way in which teams are winning games has changed, and I just think if he's given time, he will improve. But I do believe they will sign a striker, though. I do believe that.
I think, I mean, you know better than me, I think when you maybe go back 10, 15 years, we talk about the great strikers of the world, even for sort of like Real Madrid, Barcelona, the Milans, I think the level of strikers dropped, or maybe it's different, and at times that striker's almost got to sacrifice himself for the team. So there's so many teams in the Premier League will say they need a striker, and you say, who? Yeah. They're not there. There's not what we sort of saw maybe 15, 20 years ago, where it felt like every top team had like a world-class striker.
Yeah, it's
systems have changed.
Yeah, systems have changed. It's a different era now. There's more players. Wide strikers, players. There's more false nines. We talked about Havertz earlier on. You know,
even Haaland's being asked to do more off the ball and then to kind of drag defenders out of position.
It's a different time. That's all. Like, the centre forwards that I grew up watching, you know, R9s, Thierry. Honestly, I could probably name 20 to 25 guys that I've analysed.
But, you know, but I think it just got some in the Premier League. You know, in the past, we had strikers who everyone sort of said they're world class. There's very few teams, probably in the Premier League, certainly top teams, who feel like their centre forward guy is done and dusted, that they're not something else. There's always sort of that little grey area at the moment.
And Harry Kane's gone off to the Bundesliga.
He's got a hat-trick yesterday.
Yeah, talking about spreading the goals out, Curtis Jones. I mean, we talked about what a great performance it was from him. And he managed to cap it all off with the winning goal in this.
Yeah, but it's so poor from Chelsea's point. I think Reece James is really poor here. I mean, you just see him float into that position. He just ambles in there in a way, really.
Is it rustiness, Jamie, from being out for nearly a year?
I don't think it is. I mean, listen, you can see him, he's ambling across. He tries to play, I mean, it's 2 yards onside when he's got his hand up at the back post. It's lazy defending. Now, you could give him a little, because of what you said, OK, fair enough, maybe he's a little bit tired. And it is that. I also think the goalkeeper is so poor. To think the goalkeeper is trying to make a challenge 2 yards out from his goal, it's a poor touch from Curtis Jones, really. He's at the full stretch. So Reece James hasn't done great, and this is really poor from the goalkeeper. Chelsea need a goalkeeper if they are going to do what Daniel mentioned in terms of challenging for next season.
Is he maybe thinking, Sanchez, about the penalty that nearly was? In the one that you think should have been a penalty?
Well, he was involved in that. It was clumsy, wasn't he? He comes flying out, he gets away with one. But that one there, as soon as Curtis Jones makes a poor touch, he's got to be on top of him. He's got to go and win that ball.
Can I ask you a question, Micah?
Yeah.
Defensively, right, I don't know if we can go back, right, but we're talking about a team that's defending. They seem as if they're defending the edge of the box here, to me. And we talked about Kurt adding more runs into the box. I wonder if that was something that was identified before, that Chelsea maybe defend the edge of the box, similar to how City did back in the days. Remember when you used to do, like, you'd hold the line on the edge of the... Yeah. So I wonder if that's something, because it seems as if they're all holding their line on the edge of the box. Look at the centre-halves. Yeah. They're holding that line like, you're not going to... Behind me, we're safe as houses.
Yeah,
Reece James on the line.
But sometimes in these situations, you have someone who's a little bit deeper. And I think there, if you're not in line with the rest of your teammates, then you have to go with the runner.
Right.
I mean, if you hold that picture there, I mean, we talk about Reece James, sorry. We criticise officials a lot. The official here, if you just watch his actual stance there, because he doesn't want to get ahead of the ball or the last man, and he puts the brakes on the linesman here to make sure he's in the line, Reece James. So this is a brilliant decision from him, and just shows you obviously what goes into it. But Reece James there, I mean, it's poor. But listen, Curtis Jones does brilliant, and they just didn't hold the lead long enough, Chelsea. I think there was obviously a couple of minutes between it, and it hadn't probably really sunk in that they were back into the game, and then Liverpool find themselves 2-1 up. But the goalkeeper's got to do so much better than that.
In terms of that Chelsea defensive performance, if you were coming up, or defensive performance in terms of that goal, Daniel, if you were in that position, are you thinking to yourself, Sanchez might be a bit hesitant here? Because, I mean, is that level of detail going through your head?
Not really, no. But what I would say is I think Kurt, he made the goal by the touch. And I think sometimes players don't really have the ability to... A ball's coming, getting fizzed across, and to take the touch on your weaker foot there, I know Premier League players and whatnot, but still...
At the speed.
To take that touch on your weaker foot and to go to the other side of the goalkeeper, I mean, it's one action, and then the right foot to come across and just guide it in the opposite corner. I have to give him credit. The touch for me, I agree with Carragher, the goalkeeper could do more and maybe smother him a bit more, but how Kurt dealt with that, you have to give him a lot of credit, man.
In the goalkeeper's defence, I think maybe he thinks he's going to hit it first time, and then he sort of hesitates and then doesn't go out. I think in the game, he didn't have the greatest games today, but just if you look at the angle, he sort of goes back, he's off balance, and then by the time he tries to go, it's just a little bit too late.
But what I don't like is that when he goes, he's turning his face. It's almost like he's scared of getting hit by the ball. You go back to Peter Schmeichel, when he'd come out and he'd just make himself as big as possible. He comes out to Curtis Jones. Curtis Jones should be absolutely terrified that a keeper's coming towards me, 6'4", he's coming on top of him. He's like scared of the ball on Curtis Jones, and he's turning his head away. You've got to get there and hopefully it hits you in the face and keep it out. But, I mean, we talk about Chelsea and probably the money they've spent and where they still need things. I mean, they need a new goalkeeper if they're going to get back to where they want to be.
And while we have been highlighting the errors from Chelsea, it was all round, as you've all said, a really good performance for them.
It's defeat, but do you feel like your team have shown something in defeat today? Did you like the performance?
Absolutely. I think we don't like to lose. We don't like to drop points. But if you have to choose the way, probably this is the way that you want to drop points. Came here in this stadium against this team. I really like the performance of the team. I think probably we deserve something more, but anyway, the performance was good.
Yeah, I mean, listen to your interviews in the week where you said you were going to come here and play like a big team. You wouldn't sit back and counter. Did that particularly please you? Like you played like a big team. You controlled a lot of the football match.
Yeah, I think we controlled most of the game. We had chances, we had possession, and we had possession in their half. Doesn't happen many times that you see Liverpool in their side for a long time, and this is the reason why I said that we don't like to draw points, we don't like to lose, but if we have to choose, probably this is the way. And overall, the team came here brave, on the ball and off the ball, and I think this is the right way.
So does it still feel like a big step today, a step forward?
Yeah, but I said before the game, I don't think today's game define where we are. I think today's game, we try to prepare the game in the best way, on the ball and off the ball. I think work quite well, and then sometimes also you have to take, the moment, the chance. But overall, I'm very proud of the players.
Tactically, what gave you control? They seem to really struggle to build up, especially in the first half.
Yeah, I think off the ball we were, as we said since we started, we were man-to-man, we were aggressive. The defenders, they were man-to-man against their striker, their attacker, and on the ball, I think we just adjust, make some details, some small things that works quite well. But as I said, overall, I think we deserve something more. But the important that we have a good feeling.
When you say you feel like you deserve something more, there were a lot of big decisions for the officials to make today. Are you satisfied that they got them right, that the officials haven't decided this football match?
To be honest, I didn't see nothing in terms of decision from the referee. The only thing I can say that sometimes in this stadium, some decision is also for the noise of the crowd. But overall, I think the people enjoy the game, and we 8 drop points, we 8 lose, but as I said, if we need to choose a way, probably this is the right way.
So just in terms of what you say there, the effect of the stadium, Liverpool had like an appeal for a penalty, there was a couple of big decisions, a couple of roars, and then the penalty comes. So do you think there's almost like wave after wave, and that impacts the ref?
This is a question for the ref. The only thing I can say, as I said, that the referee also, they are there to make some decisions. Sometimes they are right, sometimes they are wrong, but like the mine, like yours, like everyone. But sometimes you have the feeling from outside that some decision is because of the noise, but overall I think they were okay.
The timing of the winning goal really hurt. You had 3 players ready to come on, and then before they can get on the pitch, you're back behind.
Yeah. Has been probably in that moment, if we don't concede, probably I think the game could be a different kind of game in terms of results, but we concede, and the team doesn't change nothing, keep it going, and we had chances until the end.
And just lastly on that, you basically made 4 subs by around the 50th minute because Sancho came off at half-time. Any or all of those predetermined? I guess it would be with James and Lavia coming off.
Yeah, we're already for Romeo and for Reece, for both. The idea was to play them 45 minutes, 1 hour, no more than that.
Okay. And the other 2 are tactical. Sancho tactical.
Yeah, both.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jamie, just to pick up on Enzo Maresca's comment that today's game doesn't define where they are. Is that true of the result, but maybe not of the performance? Maybe the performance tells us more about where they are.
I thought they were excellent, and when managers come up against each other, they're trying to do something a little bit different to maybe throw the opposition's setup up, and they definitely done that in terms of the position of Gusto starting at left back. Naturally, you think, oh, he's coming in to stop Mo Salah because he's right-footed. Mo Salah likes to come inside on his left foot, but he was almost playing in a number 10 position, similar to Cole Palmer, who was slightly on the other side. So they had 4 men in midfield against Liverpool's 3, and they caused Liverpool real problems. And I said at half-time, Arne Slot's going to have to do something different. I don't think he did, but maybe they got to grips with it a little bit better. But in terms of controlling the game, Chelsea were by far the better team here. But what let them down was to go back to the goalkeeper. If they got a better goalkeeper, the Curtis Jones second goal, maybe the game finishes 1-1. Who knows what would happen after that? But the thing that Chelsea probably didn't do enough of second half with all the ball he had was create chances. And Carragher, for the main in the game, I don't think he made too many saves. But in terms of controlling the game and pushing Liverpool back, Liverpool was sort of hanging on at times in the second half and slowing the game down with 2-1 to try and get to the final whistle.
I agree with that, but I think in terms of what Liverpool did to sort of nullify that threat, Cole Palmer, who we talked about before the game, he was at times non-existent. So in terms of the tactical sort of building up with the 3 and then 2 midfield, the 4, and then Jackson up front, Cole Palmer couldn't really get involved in the game. He was sort of a decoy at times. He was coming into number 6 position just to get on the ball. But in terms of going forward, they didn't manage to get the star player involved in the game.
Yeah, the spaces weren't on that side. In the first half, you saw Lavia picking the ball up and he was playing nice balls, breaking the lines into Gusto, into Sancho on the left. And that was how they were penetrating Liverpool's press. But in the second half, obviously, Enzo comes on. They become a bit more attack-minded, I would say, with Enzo. And then in turn, they maybe lost that stability in terms of the movements and the way in which they progressed the ball forward.
But when you've got someone like Cole Palmer, he's going to be a big focus of Liverpool before the game. So Curtis Jones is all over that tactic. Maybe at times Andy Robertson's tucking him. So you think how narrow Liverpool were at times. And that meant there was space on the outside. So even though we'll say Cole Palmer wasn't at his best, Liverpool gave up a lot of space out wide. So Sancho in the first half, Madueke as well. Neto, when he came out, had so much time on the ball to run at the fullbacks because Liverpool had to keep it tight in midfield. And the one who was getting the time in midfield, as you mentioned, was Lavia, but also Gusto was picking the ball up. You're not going to leave Cole Palmer in a lot of space, but the fact that he put Gusto there surprised Liverpool, and that's why I said for the main, they controlled the game.
And Chelsea came up.
It's a big moment. A lot resting on it, and to step up and score for your team when everyone's relying on you, all the hard work that's put into winning a penalty, incredible effort.
There he is, joint 9th in that. Did you ever save any Franks down the years?
He did. Did he ask you to ask?
That's all I best ever say.
He did try me.
That's all I best ever say.
One also flew past him. But
I didn't prime him, don't bite. I didn't say nothing. I didn't say anything.
You just had a little glint in your eye. We said that's Frank.
I made the mistake. I had a conversation with Joe the week preceding. I saw you somewhere in a bar. Another story.
That wasn't me, lads.
Penalties. And I divulged too much. And then 1 week later, I had one against him.
You nearly knocked my arm off, though. That was one of my best ones. That.
Can you tell me that story when we finish?
That'll be better.
1-1. You said Neto came on instantly at half-time. Nicholas Jackson. Again, good use here. Not given on field. Had a look at it. Right decision comes.
Yeah, great in the end to get that decision right. But I think for Chelsea, this was the good stuff that Chelsea did. They ended up in these positions with their head up playing forward through midfield a lot. And then you've got to penetrate the line, which I think Jackson has shown is one of his big strengths, that he can run behind defenders. The impressive thing for me here is, obviously we'll see it's onside, but is that he makes the movement, he makes a slightly diagonal run, and at the time of the pass we know he's onside. But this, there it is, and we'll see that obviously. But the quickness of how he gets it out of his feet and runs when he gets the other side. You've got Virgil van Dijk coming back at you. You've got Robertson trying to, and he gets it away. Nice quick touches and a really smart finish at the near post. And that's maybe where people would criticise Jackson last year. Too many chances to score a certain amount of goals, but big moment for him, big game, gets his chance, great finish.
And that made it 1-1. And, of course, we've seen Curtis Jones's goal at Anfield, where Patrick Berger is waiting to speak to us again, who is still the last player to score a hat-trick in this fixture. So you've still got that record, Paddy. What do you make of that today?
Yeah, well, not the best game, really, to be fair. But sometimes you need to win ugly, and that's what Liverpool did today. You know, they have 3 points, top of the table. So, you know, happy, very happy. Yeah,
and that's a good sign under Arne Slot moving forward. There's still lots more to come, yet they're still top of the table.
I mean, it is a long season and there are no easy games in Premier League, but if someone would tell the manager that, you know, he would be top of the table after this game, then he would take it any time. So, yeah, I think, you know, we can be happy. As I said, you know, not the best game, but 3 points in the bag and they can move on.
Paddy, what was the atmosphere like, particularly at the latter end of the game? Because it seemed to be quite nervous in the end.
I was sitting inside, it was too cold outside.
Oh, forget it then. What was the tea like inside then? Was a nice cup of tea?
Beautiful. 2 sugars and milk.
Oh, dear. And in terms of Arne Slot's life at Liverpool, I mean, as I just said, I think in his first 11 games, only Pep can better that when he first came to England.
I mean, listen, you know, he couldn't start for better start, obviously. But as I said, it is a long season, and you know they're going to judge him at the end of the season. You know, they're playing well. You know, they're winning games, getting points. There's so many competitions to play in. So far so good. But let's wait till the end of the season.
Yeah, and the squad. I mean, Maka made that point earlier on. In comes Curtis Jones, gets the winner. Diaz started on the bench as well. Great option to come on. It seems pretty seamless at the moment.
The beginning of the season, I felt that, you know, he likes to play the same team every single game, you know, the starting 11. But today he changed a few players. You know, I think, you know, he feels that, you know, there's so many games coming up, and then he has to start to rotate the players, you know, keep the players happy. And I feel that, you know, if they can keep all the players fit, no suspensions, then there is no reason why they couldn't carry on as they have done so far.
Paddy, great to see you again today. Thank you very much.
Cheers,
indeed.
Paddy.
Cheers, lads. All the best.
Mate.
That is Patrick Berger at Anfield. Here is the Chelsea boss, Enzo Maresca. Well, he really likes the performance, he says. They were brave, and in the cold light of day, I said to you, no points, but he'll take a lot from it, he thinks, today.
Yeah, and I think bravery is a big plus to go into a game of that stature when they're a young squad. In terms of the build and control and understand, I don't think at the top end of the pitch they created that many big chances, but in terms of the feeling of having some control there is a big thing for him, because when you're trying to move towards this possession-based game, which he is, I think that he can speak to the players after that game and go, see, you can control, the setup is good, the things I'm trying to do are good, and they'll buy into that. The next thing, as I say, is just being that little bit more dynamic in the big moments in big games. But to be fair, Liverpool have got players that have done it for quite a few seasons. Generally, we talk about Mo Salah. You understand that he can do this all the time. So you're trying to develop Madueke, you're trying to get Neto into the team and feel comfortable in the team. Cole Palmer, we know, can do it, but okay, a big game that wasn't maybe his today. So I think it's normal that he comes out and speaks as he did. He'll be disappointed that they lost, but there were some good signs.
Yeah, and does that help, from a player's point of view, believe what the manager's saying when, although they haven't got any points, he's saying they've had control of a game at Anfield?
Yeah, I'm a bit split. I get it. I get that tactically you've got to interview and work on the whole season, and he's had a good start to his Chelsea career. He's turned around a slightly negative narrative around the club, but ultimately, you know, he's lost the game, and that's the most important thing when it comes to the big games. You know, Chelsea aren't a small club; they're a big club with big investment. And if that's, you know, he's a process kind of guy, and that's what he's being backed to do, but it just doesn't feel like that's what's going on at Chelsea. So if he's feeling comfortable and confident enough to come out and speak like that, then he must feel confident and be having good conversations with the people above him, because you don't get that much time at these kind of places. So no, I think it's positive. I'm not criticising him for what he's saying. I just think it's interesting for how Chelsea work. But he seems very secure and very sure in what he's doing, regardless of what's going on around him.
They've got a very young squad, haven't they?
Was the youngest starting 11 in the Premier League.
And I think that's a plus point. They played well today. They will get better. But as Joe rightly said, they have to get better quickly, unfortunately, because that's just the business we're in, and people have been sacked before him for not getting the job done. So yes, he's trusting the process. They play really well. They play through the pitch. They need to score more goals, of course, and be more dynamic in the top half. How long has he got? We don't know, but you know, he's a confident man. He was confident at Leicester. He played the right way, but in the end, whether it's now or next year or the year after, he has to deliver trophies, because the amount of investment demands that. And if they don't see it, they'll change him because they're ruthless at that club. So, yeah, nice start, but they've lost to Liverpool, they've lost to City this year. I mean, in the end, £4 or £5 billion worth of investment, they don't want to be losing to those teams because they're all the teams who were going to be above them at the latter part of the season.
Yeah, and I think a reality of the game is as well. I agree with Joe to an extent. He's saying something here he wants the public to hear and the players to hear. I understand a slight positive spin, but Liverpool were not at their best today. And Liverpool, particularly in that first half, it had the feeling of a game. They're slightly off it. You didn't feel that Liverpool. Sometimes you go to Anfield, they don't give you a breath. Now, first 10 minutes you feel them, and that was never there today. So I think as much as he's saying I'm quite happy with that, you also, in reflection, will say what they want. So that was an opportunity to come here and get something, and they haven't done that. So is it down to immaturity of a young developing squad? Potentially, managers trying to come in and lay down these things. But when you do fall short, the reality is, OK, there's a little bit more pressure now that we have to get results. They've lost 2 games against big teams. They've drawn a couple of games. So he'll want to get those results. We talked about results for Arne Slot and what it does. He'll want to make sure that kicks in. And I know you're an outsider looking in now, but do you get a feeling that he will be given a little bit more time? There is a little bit more stability. Yeah, I think there's an air of positivity in-house and outside, and I think I've felt in the last 2 years I've been over to Stamford Bridge to watch some games, and there's been a different feeling, transition, and fans are used to seeing teams win generally for the last 15, 20 years very regularly, not seeing it, so there's an element of frustration. I think now we're on the turning point of that as a feeling. So I think the support maybe of the club is there, and there's a positive atmosphere and positive words and an idea that we're going in this direction. So I think that's a good thing for him. I think in terms of his timing of coming into the job, what I mentioned before, they have a little bit of stability. And then he will need time to work. All managers will tell you that, but he certainly will need that. So again, come back to results will be the catalyst for that. Yeah, well, that's your point, isn't it? He can have time, but if he's not winning, he won't get it.
And if he's 5th, it's fine. And if he's 15th, it's not fine. It's as simple as that. Unfortunately, it's black and white, isn't it? They've spent a lot on players. You can see that must stop now. You know, you can't bring in 10 at the end of this season and let 7 go out the door. That has to stop, and we think it will. But now it's up to the manager to work with them, and it's up to the players to get the best out of them and climb the table and try and be successful.
Arne, you said this week that on league table it looked like being the hardest game yet. Did it prove to be the hardest game yet?
I think many of our games were hard, but this one might have been the hardest maybe because of the amount of quality players they have and also the structure they play in. So it was we had to fight really hard to bring this over the line, that's clear.
And your thoughts, what's your assessment of your team's performance?
I think what we did really well is we defended so strong and with the whole team, so there was incredible work rate. And the game became difficult for us because there were a few decisions, at least in my opinion, that didn't went for us. So I think the most crucial one was the one where we thought we got the penalty just before half-time, and then to go up for a 2-0 lead, it makes a massive difference instead of going 1-0 into half-time and then conceding a few minutes after half-time. But we stepped up again, scored the goal, and then in the end it was a lot of hard work and a lot of dedication, and that's what we did really well.
It was an intense game. It was a scrap. It was a fight at times. Are you pleased to see that side of your team come out?
Yeah, I've seen this a lot already, but the better the teams you face, the more you need it. I think you know better than me, but if you play in the Premier League, there are so many good teams, so many good players. So if you want to win, then at least you need a fight, and then hopefully the individuals can make the difference. And that's also what you saw today. I think we scored some very nice goals, and we had more than a few chances to score another one, and defended really well, which is necessary if you play against the great individuals they have.
How hard is it, we saw it against Forest, I guess, to pick that momentum up, and how important is it when you come off the back of these internationals?
It definitely helps if you play against Chelsea. I think that's a big game. Everybody feels this. The fans felt it, and we felt it that the fans felt it, because I think they were really there for us today. And the players, as a player, you always favor to play the big games. You're always looking forward to that. But in the end, it's the same amount of points that you can take if you play Nottingham Forest. But yeah, the game also went in a way that it was intense, and we showed up. That was the most important thing.
Thanks, Arne. Thank you.
You said, Maka, they did show up, and they had to show different qualities to the free-flowing style we talked about before the game that Arne Slot would want.
Yeah, and they came up against opposition in Chelsea today, who they faced last year, and they lost, didn't they, to Atalanta. They surprised them last year in the Europa League, went man-to-man, and they beat them quite comfortably at Anfield. So they have played against that. And, as Joe rightly mentioned before, in the end, it's up to the goalkeeper. His passing was excellent out of the press into Salah, which helped them. So it's just about adapting to the opposition, like it is when you have to adapt to the different conditions. You have to play. If it's windy, you just knock it long. If you can play at the time, play through the pitch, and that will be something that he will take heart on, because a lot of the players got the job. They managed the game at the end when they became under a little bit of pressure, and the 3 points was taken. You move on, as I said before. Now they've got a Champions League game. They've got Arsenal away next week, which will be a completely different type of game, away from home against an Arsenal side that will want to bounce back. So the fact that they have got a cushion, we are talking in glowing terms about Liverpool, will certainly help them confidence-wise going into the proximate games.
Let's have a look at their next 10 fixtures, because you were saying, let's not get too carried away, even though they've done well, because this is a test, isn't it?
Very
you mentioned
much so.
the Arsenal game and Leipzig, but look what else is coming up in that run. Xabi Alonso's return to Anfield is one, Real Madrid is another, and of course the Manchester City game, where we'll all be there on the 1st of December, stands out. I mean, we'll know a lot more by the beginning of December, you feel, looking at that run?
Yeah, you will. I mean, I think fair play to Arne Slot. He's not getting ahead of himself. No. He speaks, I think he understands that. He understands the run that they've had so far, understands how tough it's going to be for them moving forward. But he's building from good foundations. He's coming from a good place. I think the little tweaks he might make, looking at today, he's focused on the positives there post-game. He speaks about the most important things of football. When you have to defend and you're not at your best, it's hugely important. When you have to be clinical and take your moments, you have to take them. So Liverpool have done that. But over that course of games, there are going to be many more tests.
But they have got what he's always had as a manager, and you look at his record, is that this defensive foundation. 3 goals conceded. The next best is Forest with 6.
Yeah, and I think in terms of learning about your team, you talked about Maresca at Chelsea. I think Arne Slot, as tactically they'd have been both set up this week, and in the few days they've had since the international break, I think Arne Slot would have sat back and thought, I've not necessarily had to teach these guys how to take control of the game or deal with the game like they did, and especially in those last 20 minutes. And that will give him such a warm, strong feeling inside, thinking, he probably could sit back and think, Virgil van Dijk's going to take care of this. Mo Salah knows what to do in this position. I can tactically prepare these guys, young men. I can give them as much information as I possibly can. Move this way when the press and all these sorts of conversations. But Liverpool showed a really steely way of winning that game. Even Curtis Jones, you look at him, a young player. He's not a young player. He's someone who's come through Liverpool. I think he was a really grown-up performance for him today, and a winner's performance. And I think Arne Slot will sit back and after that game today and think, maybe I haven't necessarily had to do that much tactically. My team are ready. They're up for it.
The thing about those games is that they will take care of themselves, won't they? Arsenal away, you don't have to say anything. If they win in the Champions League midweek, albeit a difficult game in Germany, of course, they'll have 9 points, three wins out of 3. The Leverkusen and the Real Madrid home games then become less important. Of course, they want to win, but they become less important. And then you can concentrate on the Arsenal game, the Brighton at home. Again, the League Cup, he's going to have to rotate the team a lot. And if they get knocked out of that, they get knocked out of that. It won't be, even though they're the holders, it won't be a huge problem for them. You expect Brighton to change their team around. But as it drives onto the Manchester City game in December, that's when it'll start getting interesting, because, they could be away from a lot of the teams then. They could be just them and City clear, you never know. But if they go and win at Arsenal, that'll send shockwaves, really, because they'll fly way clear of them as well. So it just builds different pressures as you go through the season. You just have to manipulate one game after the other, win that one, let's move forward, put pressure on the opposition. And it's very exciting if you're a Liverpool fan and, if you're in the Liverpool team.
Because 8 games in, as we said earlier on, replacing somebody like Jurgen Klopp, it's great. He won't get carried away, but to look at the league table, look at the goals conceded, what a platform he's got there already.
It's a great platform, and I agree completely. They're big players that know how to play at the top end, know how to win things, and one of the most important things in that sort of schedule will be keeping those players fit, because there are 2 or 3 big players in that team. If you look at Virgil van Dijk or Mo Salah, it would really affect that team, the big players in there. So he needs to balance that, which might mean some rotations and changes and stresses on the squad. We'll see that over the coming weeks.
Welcome to the Gary Neville podcast from Anfield, where we have seen, Gary Neville, a really, really good game of football, haven't we?
Yeah, really good. I think that before the game I thought what happened... Let's start again. Before the game, what I thought would happen did happen, in the sense that Liverpool just further ahead in the development and their journey as a team and as sort of a group of players, more experienced, and that Chelsea would find it hard today. But I think that I was hoping Chelsea were going to do well in the sense of the game, and I think they did. I think they played some really good football. I think we know where their deficiencies lie, probably. And I don't really want to call out Nicholas Jackson. I think he can be part of a very successful squad that can do well for Chelsea. I just think if they had a world-class striker in front of him and that he was, say, the second striker, that would probably more align with a team that then could go on and potentially win a title in a few years' time and catch Liverpool up. Again, at the other end of the pitch with the goalkeeper, and then just that maturity and the growth of the players, because obviously some of them are young. So I think there's a lot to work with. They lost the game. The 2 games I've done this season, they've lost. The first game of the season against Manchester City, and this game now against Liverpool. But I actually thought there were good things in both games, which gives me encouragement for Chelsea. And the fans at the end of the game, the Chelsea fans were all clapping behind that goal. So I think that tells you that they liked a lot of what they saw, and there's some encouragement. There really is. The substitutions, because they've got so many players, and they're all, you've got lots of players, haven't you? So maybe there is an element of Maresca which then feels like he has to make substitutions, but I just think maybe the quality, maybe the performance deteriorated with the 5 substitutions. I thought Chelsea were at the best with the starting 11. Maybe you could argue that, Sancho going off at half-time, one way or the other doesn't really, count for much, but I just felt as though maybe the substitutions didn't help them, and Liverpool were untroubled and really managed and controlled the game well. They weren't at the best, but they demonstrated their experience, Liverpool, today, and in the end I think deserved the result just purely because of that.
Obviously over the last fortnight international football's been the topic, England in particular, and I was excited to see today those 3 for Chelsea, Palmer, Madueke, Sancho, but Curtis Jones actually on the other side. What a performance from him.
Yeah, Liverpool have a habit of getting the absolute maximum out of their players, and you look at that midfield of Szoboszlai, Gravenberch and Jones, and if you said that was playing against Caicedo, Fernandes, Lavia, Palmer, you'd say Chelsea should really dominate the game there. They should, better players, cost more in the transfer market, more fancied by the top clubs. Liverpool tried to sign Caicedo and Lavia, remember? But the 2 players that they tried to sign weren't as good as the players that they've ended up with, who were less money. And that is down to the stability in the club. Obviously, the performance of Jurgen Klopp last year as a coach, but also the performance of Arne Slot since he's come in. And Curtis Jones has epitomised that today. Swashbuckling performance, all action. You think about the 2 in midfield that were playing there, Gravenberch and Curtis Jones. They didn't really play like a holding midfield 2. They were dynamic. They went and got the ball in wide areas, in deep. When they were deep, they went and basically sort of then shifted up the pitch and made runs forward. It was a really good performance from him. He was involved in everything, in penalties, in goals. And that's what coaching is. It's what football should be, that, through stability. What Liverpool have done is through stability and giving players confidence. The opposite of Chelsea in some ways, where they've signed a lot of players and maybe undermined players who are already in the club, settling down a little bit now, I know. But Liverpool have been the absolute opposite. They've missed their target in the summer that we're going to bring in midfield, and Curtis Jones might not have been playing today. But the fact that he is means that he's played at a really high level, and that should give Liverpool, and particularly, I suppose, people in their boardroom, in their sporting director and their sort of other people who choose the players, they've got patience. It's an unusual quality in today's game, and I know that from owning a club myself, that you can be impatient. So they have patience here, and there's a stability. Klopp leaving, the back 5 still in place, gives them that real foundation. And then in midfield, you've got basically 2 or 3 players, 4 players maybe, to choose from, who individually you would say, would they get in the other sort of top teams? But when you watch them play as a collective, they're so willing. They're like sponges, I can imagine, on the training pitch, taking everything in, and the collective of them together is better than their individual parts, and that's the sign of a really good team and good coaching and good work. And Curtis Jones there, I thought, was outstanding, best player on the pitch.
And actually their only defeat this season, Liverpool, came off the back of the last international break, and perhaps it says something that this time they were able to rest their 3 South Americans for the majority of the game. And we've done Curtis Jones, but I mean, Cody Gakpo instead of Luis Diaz. There feels as though there's an alternative everywhere. Even at the end of the game, Gomez for Alexander-Arnold.
Yeah, well, we've seen that before from Jurgen Klopp, haven't we, at a point whereby maybe they're sort of under the cosh a little bit, defending deep, that Gomez is preferred. Up front, we know they've got fantastic options, and they've got 5 or 6 there that you know can play across the front line, and they can always sort of change it up. So if Jota goes off like he did today, or Gakpo plays for Diaz, Núñez comes on, they're all of a high level, they're all a threat. Salah's the one constant that holds them together. He gets more and more important. I was talking before the game about Cole Palmer. Salah's shocked me in the sense of his just consistency and his reliability of his goals and his assists over such a long period of time. When he first came to Liverpool, you'd never have imagined he'd get to this sort of superstar level that he has, and this world-class level. And Cole Palmer's doing that now 15, 16 months in. He's got another 6, 7, 8 years to go to get to that level whereby he can then be deemed as being sort of a superstar world-class player like sort of Mo Salah. It's when you do it over that period of time, and he's a great player for Cole Palmer to look at, but he holds that front line together in terms of his composure. Salah, he just hangs on this right-hand side, his strength, his quality, and Liverpool have got a lot of players who have done a lot. They've won Premier Leagues, they've won trophies in cups, they've won Champions Leagues, and that gives you a confidence and an authority, and I think that's helping Arne Slot settle in at this club.
So quickly, before we move on to the other 2 of the top 3, just a sort of final overview of Chelsea, a read of where Chelsea are at in your view.
A lot better place than they were, I think, last season. I think there feels like something's building. Looks like the players enjoy it. I go back to that first game of the season against City on Monday Night Football, which is the one that I did at the start of the season. The night after, I actually took Tottenham out of my top 4 and put Chelsea in it, because there was something I saw against City, even though they lost, that I liked. And I feel the same today still. There's a lot to work with there that you can like. Now, obviously, that they are a little bit raw at both ends of the pitch at times, and you feel there is development, but you know that they're young, and I think that the owners will be a lot happier. I would say at this moment in time, there's some promise. It looks like they're believing in sort of the system and the coach and the way in which things are going. I think the fans look like they're a lot happier with it as well. And I think today they showed really good courage to play here at Anfield in the first half. This is the toughest away ground to come and play. And I think they demonstrated that they could come and play and take the ball. They do still make mistakes in certain parts of the game, but then that's every single team. I would reiterate, the 2 most difficult positions on the football pitch are centre forward and goalkeeper. They're the 2 most influential positions also on the football pitch, and if they have someone world class in those positions, I do think they can really be a threat to the top teams in the next couple of years if the rest of them can grow and continue to improve.
Okay, so the biggest story of the weekend, actually, never mind this super game we've just seen, is probably Arsenal losing to Bournemouth, which from a neutral perspective is lovely, because we talk forever about the unpredictability of the Premier League. Apart from obviously having a player sent off, where were Arsenal's shortcomings?
Well, there was a big debate, wasn't there, a few weeks ago when they played against Manchester City, which I contributed to when they sat so deep against Manchester City, and they obviously at the end conceded that goal. But I think that they've had 3 games this season where they've dropped points, and 3 times they've obviously had a man sent off. What I would say is yesterday and against Brighton, I still think my expectation of Arsenal in the way in which they are, obviously what they've got to do is deal with the discipline issues. They get too many players sent off just generally, so that's got to be looked at. And I'm sure Mikel Arteta now will say, look, this is going to cost you if it carries on, so let's attend to it properly. So that's the first thing to say. But secondly, if we go down to 10 men, you've got to still go and win. And I think Roy Keane said this a few weeks ago, and at the time, it was again after the City game, which I think that's the one game where you could have some sort of sympathy. But I think Roy was talking about it in relation to the Brighton game and saying, go and win with 10 men. I do genuinely believe yesterday against Bournemouth at 0-0, with 10 men, they should go and win that match. And I believe they have to go and win that match, and they can't lose that match. So for me, that'll be something that I feel after that game. You can lose any match in football, we know that. But I think that's the most disappointing thing, is that they've not gone and won the game against Brighton. They've not gone and won the game against Bournemouth. And I think they should be, with the quality that they have, still be able to win those matches. So 2 things. One, don't get players sent off as much. That sounds really easy, but sometimes teams go through periods where they do get players sent off and it costs them, and you've got to deal with it and you've got to stop it. The second thing is, if we do go down to 10 men, we've got to go and win. You've got to go and win. Now, City, take that one out because it's Manchester City, but the other 2, Brighton and Bournemouth, as good a team as Brighton are, and you're away at Bournemouth, a difficult game, go and win the match. Take out of the game the fact that you've gone and won, and you've basically won with 10 men and everyone thinks, whoa. So, look, I think on a general note of Arsenal, I'd say still very early in the season, early enough for them to recover, early enough for them to still be really dangerous and win the league, I believe. But then, I was disappointed with them last night. I think they should be disappointed with themselves.
In mitigation, no Saka, no Ødegaard, no Timber.
I get that. But then we're talking about playing against Bournemouth, aren't we? And they're a good side, I know, but, they've got squads of 20 to deal with Champions League football, to deal with a couple of injuries. We know that basically players will be missing at certain points in the season. Liverpool have played today against Chelsea without Alisson, their world-class goalkeeper, without Diaz, without McAllister. They're 3 players that they played without today that would be really sort of, if you like, in their side. So, that happens for me. I don't... Saka always plays as well. He always plays. You're going to miss him. If you said you're going to miss him at least once, twice, 3 times in a season, then Bournemouth away would be one of the games you may say, well, OK, well, that's fine. We've got a squad to be able to deal with it. So, yeah, I understand that. But for me, I would expect Arsenal to have done better with 10 men yesterday. And obviously, I think the sending off was right. So they've got to deal with that. I think it's the first time Saliba's ever been sent off, isn't it? So, that happens in football. I'm not going to criticise the lad for getting sent off. It's just that it's happened 3 times now in 7 or 8 matches.
As a matter of interest, what did you think of the decision to send Saliba off?
I thought it was the right decision in the end. It was a long way from goal, but the goalkeeper, I think, speaking to Mike about it before, actually, I think once the goalkeeper starts to backpedal, there's an acceptance that he's not getting the ball, and then the striker's going to get there. So I think that's the problem. I mean, the mistake from Trossard's a bad one. Maybe hasn't been talked about enough. The pass back, you know what I mean? The one that gets left short. So for me, these things happen, but it's how you react from it. And I think Declan Rice's interview after the game was that, they'd fought hard and they'd worked hard, but turn that hard. We know you work hard. I mean, the Arsenal team, they do work hard. They're reliable now. They're at a really good level, and I think that Mikel Arteta's built a team that we can trust. But not getting points yesterday, not winning yesterday. You can't just, we're down to 10 men so we can lose. That's not the way in which it is. If you're a top side, which they are, go and win that match and go and win the game against Brighton.
I don't know how much of you saw of it. I didn't see much, but Manchester City at Wolves.
I watched quite a bit of it.
Well, clearly it was a scare. So, what did you see?
I mean, Wolves, to be fair, I have to say I've watched them a couple of times and I've thought they're in real trouble. I think that they're really struggling. But I think Gary O'Neill will be... I think he'll be enthused by today. I think he'll be happier with what he saw, but I think he'll be absolutely devastated at the end. I did agree with the decision that Bernardo Silva wasn't interfering with the goalkeeper on the John Stones header. So we obviously came up here, we watched that, didn't we, with Mike, and we were looking at the screens and we were thinking, is he in front? He's clever, Bernardo Silva, he has that little lean into him, but then I think he leaves and the goalkeeper has a chance to reset himself. And then I think that the ball just basically, obviously goes past the goalkeeper. It's a great header from John Stones. But it's 2 important goals from John Stones, isn't it, in the last month? Incredible that, I always feel, maybe they're that type of team. They've built up that sort of feeling about it. Remember the goal last year that they scored at Newcastle late on? It was Oscar Bob, wasn't it, I think? And I remember watching that in January or February, whenever it was that they scored that goal, and thinking, here we go again, they're going to win the league here. It's moments like that, even this early, which make you just think, because they're the moments where you think, well, if City don't win that game late on, then they dropped 2 points at Wolves, which I would not have expected. So I think they'll be absolutely ecstatic. Well, they were. We saw them at the end celebrating, didn't we, the City players and Pep Guardiola and the fans over on that far side. It's a big win for City because, look, we know they're brilliant. We know they're fantastic. They've got a great manager, but still coming out off the back of international football, having been there at United all those years and getting everyone back together. I always remember Sir Alex would say, get your heads are full of mince when you come back from international football. You've all been listening to different instructions from different managers in different parts of the world. You've all got on different planes, come back at different times, and you're all basically disconnected. And so you'd come back maybe for the Friday morning. I know City is playing on a Sunday today, so you have an extra day to prepare, which is important. But sometimes you can get back on a late Thursday or a Friday, and you can end up basically just training maybe one session together before the match. And he would say each time that, it's difficult. He would recognise that in us, and he'd say, look, I'm relying upon you today to get your heads right, because he knew that there would been distraction. There has been distraction of another set of football tactics and style and teammates for the previous 10 days. So, yeah, I think that what City have done today is get over the line, which is what they do. And, well done to them for that.
Yeah, and probably one of those we'll remember in May. If they're the ones walking up to pick up the trophy,
You
we'll
do.
remember that Wolves game. And
You do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, there was a mention, I think, today, would these two teams win the title? I don't think so. But what Liverpool are doing defensively at the moment is interesting. But I'd like to sort of assess it at Christmas. I still think that they're short. I do feel like they're short. I feel like Chelsea obviously are short. They're not going to win the league. I think that Arsenal are the only team that can really sort of take on City. But you've got to be in front of them. You've got to be close to them, and you can't afford to fall too many points behind.
Which makes, and let's finish on this, throwing it forward, next week's game, Arsenal-Liverpool, an absolute monster.
Yeah.
Arsenal, of course, without Saliba.
Yeah, without Saliba. But again, I'm not. We cannot. We had the excuse, didn't we, a couple of years ago when Saliba wasn't playing in the final matches, and sort of that was seen and accepted that he's a big loss. But you've added players to the squad to be able to deal with that. You can't be one player away of having a one-match ban and thinking, basically the level can go from here to here when you're looking to win a title. You have to remain consistent and reliable if you do get an injury. We've seen City without Haaland and without De Bruyne for, big parts of seasons, and they've still got by. We've seen them get by, and I know that they're a sort of machine City at this moment in time, but I've got a lot of confidence in Arsenal. I've got a lot of love for the way in which they've sort of developed as a team over the last 2 years. When they came here 18 months ago, whenever it was, when they came here and they found it really difficult and it started to fall apart for them in that title running, and they froze in that last part of the season, there's no doubt about that. They're a different set of players and they're a different level and a different level of belief than where they were. And this is now next week whereby we can't be talking about, so-and-so's not playing, or he's not playing. We're not interested. We're not interested. There's been a lot of money. There's been a lot of improvement. Now's the time to go and show it. And they're still in with a chance, a big chance. It's very early in the season. So next Sunday, big test for Liverpool and a big, obviously, not question about Arsenal, but a big, question about Arsenal without Saliba, because he seems to have been ever present for like an age now.
And that'll give us something to talk about a week from now.
Yeah,
Look
looking forward
to it,
to
Gary.
it. Thanks,
Thank you.
Peter.